Uh, in this capacity, I'm the founder and general partner at Difference Partners, but more importantly, I'm the brother of Paul Morris, who's on here, a high functioning young man with autism, and the son of Robin Morris, who's also on here, who is the mother of fraternal quadruplets, of which Paul and I happen to be two of. And as you can imagine, autism is not something that I have personally, but I've been living with in my entire life, as Paul and I were in the womb together. And my entire life I spent observing his development and his struggles. And as my career took off, I got involved in startups and technology and venture capital. And in about 2018, I got really interested and curious as to why all the problems that clearly existed within the autism community weren't being solved by our greatest entrepreneurs. You have a guy like Elon Musk starting all these companies. You have Mark Zuckerberg starting Facebook. You have all these wonderful entrepreneurs starting incredible businesses to solve problems. But the problems that existed within the autism and learning and thinking differences space were mainly being solved by nonprofits. Nothing against nonprofits, but a lot of innovation, I think, was lost. So I wrote a 5-page single-spaced memo around the 5 areas that I thought needed innovation the most. Obviously, those were therapy and and then like the bucket that I call finance and insurance products. The cost of what it takes to care for a family member on the spectrum can dramatically change a family's life. So took this memo and socialized it with a bunch of people that worked in venture capital and some high net worth families. And I got a lukewarm reception. The reception was, hey, this is a cool idea. Obviously there's a need, but it might not be the right time. There's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of things that made it hard. And so what I did is I put the memo on the shelf. And actually, for those of you, I called that memo Light Blue Ventures. It was just kind of like a working name, and put it on the shelf. And I ended up very luckily getting an offer to join a venture capital firm in New York as a partner called Human Ventures, which invests in businesses in the health and wellness industry, as well as the future of work. So these were kind of more general areas that allowed me to get my feet wet to see kind of what was happening in healthcare. And then the pandemic hit. And this one family that I had known for a few years, who I had pitched that memo to, they're called the Poses family. Fred Poses called me and he said, Jesse, that thing you talked to us about a couple of years ago is in truer need now more than ever before. If you had a child, a nonverbal tantruming child at home during the pandemic and you could no longer go to your ABA clinic in person, you were completely out of luck. There are other profanities that could probably be used in there more descriptively. And a lot of families at the time were going on the internet and they said, hey, how can we help our child? And there was nothing there. There was no infrastructure whatsoever to help these children. And the family said, hey, Jesse, this fund you wanted to start a few years ago, the time is now. So I ended up finishing kind of a big project with Human Ventures, and the Poses family funded me to start what has become Difference Partners in June of last year. The Poses family started a nonprofit 10 years ago called understood.org, which some of you may be familiar with. Understood.org is the kind of the leading digital home for content and resources for families that have children with learning and thinking differences. That is inclusive of autism, ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, and related conditions. Understood.org's website and their mobile apps get millions of unique visitors per month. If you type in the word ADHD onto Google or the word IEP onto Google, they are probably one of the first 3 or 4 search results that will come up. the thing that the Poses family and I got really excited about together was that Understood has all this great information, and they have all of this great talent. They have over 100 employees, but the innovation that we were talking about that needed to happen just wasn't happening at the scale that they wanted, and so it came time to start Difference Partners. So, what an amazing opportunity! We raised $30 million for Difference Partners, and this was kind of the first fund of its kind that is exclusively investing in the learning and thinking differences space. So it's not just autism. We like to say it's the 1 in 5 people that have learning and thinking differences, also known as 70 million Americans today. It's a lot of people. The problems that I had written in my Light Blue Ventures document and the problems that Poses family and Understood.org think about on a daily basis were actually very similar, right? So we started, in early childhood. Well, if you're looking at early childhood, you need early intervention care. You need proper diagnosis. You need, once they get into school, how are IEPs being written and managed and shared? Then you've got the whole host of telehealth opportunities, right? If you have a child that needs help, you're looking at speech therapy. You're looking at occupational therapy. You're looking at ABA therapy. None of this infrastructure existed. Okay, now that you're paying for all these therapy providers and you need to get reimbursed, can you get reimbursed by your state? How is that reimbursement being processed? There's all these questions, if you dive deeper and deeper, that a business could be started around. The thesis of Difference Partners is to improve the lives of those with learning and thinking differences through technology. The hardest part about what I have to do is to make sure that this is not Difference Partners $1 million, and we're hoping to return at least 3 times that amount in a 10-year period. So we have to invest in businesses that can grow to be big enough to make it worth it. And that is probably the hardest part of the job, balancing the mission-driven nature of this and the financial opportunity. I believe, my core belief is that they can be the same, that you can build a mission-driven business that is also extremely financially viable, being led by high-integrity founders. So you might ask, where were the founders previously? How all of a sudden were there going to be founders building in this space? And to my incredible luck and surprise and happiness, I've seen over 120 pitches in the learning and thinking differences space in the last 15 months. 5 years ago, when I first started poking around, there was a minute fraction of that amount. I might have known of 5 companies, and all of those companies were being invested in by private equity firms. I'm sure you've seen a lot of, if you pay attention to this, private equity firms invest in businesses for their profits, and a lot of private equity firms were rolling up physical ABA clinics and trying to make them run more efficiently. That is a euphemism. There are some stories where they were run so efficiently that the quality of care reduced over time. So that's like probably the single hardest thing, is that when you invest in a company tens of millions of dollars, in some cases, there's pressure to grow quickly, and growing quickly can oftentimes result in poor quality. And what does poor quality look like in these businesses? The family's not getting proper attention and care. And so I spend a lot of time meeting founders who I have to believe are in it for the right reasons, and believe can execute at a high level and take on a lot of change. I invest at the really early stage level. So we're doing pre-seed and seed investments. And for those of you that aren't familiar with venture capital lingo, you can ask, but this basically means any company that has a total market value less than $10 million. It's typically where we're trying to invest, and we usually write a $500,000 first check into a company. We just completed our 15th investment, which is crazy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of meetings and a lot of diligence. The most recent one we did is a company called IEP and Me, which is out of Oakland, California. And they are trying to build a digital product that allows IEPs to be stored, managed, and shared across school districts. I've been hearing stories that of military families that have children with IEPs that every time they move cities, they have to get a brand new IEP, and the families just want to pull their hair out because it's a really intensive process. There's no reason why they shouldn't be able to be transferred much easier. Did another business based in Denver called Kinspire, which is offering occupational therapy over a mobile application, like a telehealth. And the founder there, Rob Siegel, is the father of a 9-year-old son with autism. He happens to be a CTO also, so he's got a great technical mind. And just like my relationship with Paul, he's got a relationship with his son and knows intimately the problem. So he built an amazing app, and we invested in him last month. But we're not only focused on childhood, we're focused on the adult population as well. I think my colleagues in like the greater venture capital industry see early childhood as kind of the where the money is. But I actually think that that is short-sighted, because what happens to these kids over time? They become adults. And so we invested in a business, 2 businesses in the employment space for adults. One is called Divergent, based here in New York. And they have a really fascinating business, which is they're doing vocational education, vocational training for tech jobs for neurodiverse adults. And the business gets reimbursed by at the state government level for this training. So they've piloted in the wonderful state of Arizona, and Arizona's done a really great job working with this business and kind of helping them pioneer. It doesn't really exist. Now, the thing I love about Divergent is that they don't have competition. At the moment, they have no competition because they're doing something so novel and so new. That is not always the case. Kinspire is doing the mobile occupational therapy. There's a handful of other businesses that are trying to touch what they're doing. Another example is a business called Marker Learning, which is doing psychoeducational and neuropsych evaluations to help diagnose ADD, ADHD, and dyslexia earlier through a telehealth solution. And for those of you that follow me on LinkedIn, you'll have seen the new mayor of New York City, Mayor Eric Adams, has dyslexia. And he is spending a lot of time trying to unlock budget from the New York City Department of Education to make diagnostics easier in New York City. So I've introduced the mayor with Marker Learning, and they're working on an opportunity together, which is the most fun part of my job, I'd say. Trying to walk you through a couple other examples. We invested in a business out of Toronto called Fable. So the one really important thing to note here is that, yes, I'm based in the US, and we look at most of the companies based in the US, but autism and neurodiversity and learning and thinking differences does not know geography, socioeconomic class, race. It is everywhere. So I'm really excited about opportunities globally. We've done this deal, Fable, in Canada. Fable is making the internet more usable and accessible for the disability population. A lot of the internet is not the most usable for this population of people. Call out a couple others. There's a business called Goalie, which is based in Denver also, which for those that have nonverbal children, there's a whole suite of devices called AAC devices that kids use to communicate with their families. But a lot of these AAC devices are really old and archaic and have not been built for 2022. So Goalie has a tablet device to help nonverbal or speech-delayed kids speak and communicate with their families, but also has a routine management piece of the device. And I was overhearing a call with them once with a family, and the mother was saying that her child without this device wouldn't be able to get through a sick day. And so when he would kind of do things in his routine or brush his teeth, and there's like a reward system. The parent on their own phone can like reward their child with kind of a sticker or a game or something in the device that shows up, and it's a really cool interactive experience. Nothing against iPhones, but I think iPhones can be really distracting. So the goalie device is its own device, and it's really cool. And I've loved working with that company. We also invested in a social emotional learning video game, and that's called Social Cipher. The protagonist of the game is a 14-year-old girl with autism named Ava, and the founder of the business, Vanessa, is a mid-20s woman with autism herself. So it's so cool to be able to back founders who are also on the spectrum and are building really amazing things. I'll stop there because I just said a lot, and want you all to think about questions you have for me, because I'd like this to be interactive also. But I just want to say that this has been the greatest honor of my life, to be able to blend what I do for work and what I care about most deeply. And I try to show as much gratitude as possible, but it's been incredible. It's kind of hard to speak about.